So this week we had the NBA Draft Combine. I believe some of the stuff is still ongoing, but earlier in the week we had the measurables where they get all the shooting stuff and then the athletics, sprint, lane agility, stuff like that. But then we also had scrimmages on Tuesday and Wednesday, which are probably my favorite part of the draft because we get to see some of the guys who are kind of unsung heroes in the draft, if you will. But who are some of the guys that stood out to you? Maybe not even just in the scrimmages, but with their measurables and some of the other stuff that came out about them.
Yeah, so to me, the main guy that impressed me, I was really kind of anticipating what he was going to do because he didn't have the best season in Australia, I believe is where he played. AJ Johnson, he really stood out to me. I knew what type of player he was in high school, watching his highlights and watching some of the full games they would post. But the way he was just playing in Australia, some of the limited minutes and the limited production was just was I completely just off about this guy? Is he does he actually suck? What's going on here? But seeing him at the combine definitely just reassured me that I was probably right to have him as a first round grade, in my opinion. That kid he's 6'6". He has real playmaking flashes. I think eventually he could run the point for a team. And he's athletic. His biggest thing is whether or not he's going to be able to shoot the ball consistently. And he shot it pretty well at the combine. Pretty sure he had 13 points in one of the games and scored pretty well in the other one as well. So that was definitely the guy who just jumped off the screen when I was watching the scrimmages.
One of the guys that's not super highly touted right now, he's mostly second round projections, but I feel like he could be a solid just perimeter guy in the NBA is Harrison Ingram. He's a little bit older. He's been in college for a while. He played really well in his first game. He had 14 points off the bench on 4 of 7 shooting. He hit 3 threes, but then in game 2, he was 2 of 9. So a little bit inconsistent, but I feel with his track record this year at Carolina and what he showed at least in one of the games, and then overall he was 6 of 16 from the floor, so not great, but I feel he's shown some ability to shoot from beyond the arc. So I think he, for me, has solidified himself as a solid, maybe top 45 prospect. And if a team really liked him in a meeting or something, they could maybe reach a little bit earlier on him in the second round.
Okay. I want to go and kind of talk about some of the measurables because I do think these are probably fun, or they're fun for me. Just looking at some of the statistics of some of these guys and seeing the verticals on people who you didn't really think would have that high of a vert. And I think one guy for me is Reed Sheppard. Not because, people like to say he's sneaky athletic. Obviously, he's athletic, but I was not expecting him to have one of the highest verticals of all the other prospects there. And he's a guy who he's not necessarily the most explosive player, but at times you could see he would have dunks here and there. But I think that's something that kind of adds to him and how much of I know Cameron disagrees, but I feel he can be an off-ball menace at the next level. So
yeah, I will say this, he's people use the word sneaky athletic a lot, but I think he's really athletic. He's just not fast. He's not the type of fast twitch athlete as maybe someone like a AJ Johnson, but once he actually jumps, he gets up pretty high. He obviously 42. I had to double check my phone for a second. I was sheesh, that's 42 is kind of crazy. So for him, I think he definitely was one of the biggest winners of the combine. I know he probably wishes he kind of came in a little bit taller. 6'1" is a little small, but I mean he's 6'3" with shoes on, and you play basketball with shoes, so that's decently tall. He, as far as him as an off-ball defender, I do still disagree just at this point in time. One day I think he'll get there, and he's a defensive playmaker. He does get steals, he does get blocks. His biggest thing is just paying attention to detail for an entire shot clock, actually being locked in, not losing your man when you're on ball, not just giving up once you get beat. It was kind of a team thing for Kentucky last year. A lot of their guys struggled to guard on ball and lost focus off ball a lot. But for him, he was someone that just like small things. Like at the end of the game, let's not foul a 3-point shooter when you're up 4 or 5 points at the end of the game. Like let's just dial in a little bit. So he's someone that I think the combine really helped. There's definitely flashes there on tape. Like his shooting is lights out. Like he's one of the only players I can even remember shooting 50+% from 3 for an entire season. So that's promising for him. He shot it really, really well too. So I think he's definitely one of the winners of the combine.
Yeah. Another guy who I also paid attention to was Devin Carter. He didn't play in the scrimmages, but again, he had pretty good measurables. He's always been a guy who's known for his time at Providence for having a good motor, being an athletic player, and he thrives in transition, and we see why with some of the stats he had. He set a record on the 3/4 quarter sprint, or the 3/4 court sprint. Sorry. Actually, let me fact check that because I might have that in there wrong.
Yeah, but while you're going, like he was definitely like someone at Providence that like you can just tell like was unusually athletic for his size. I think that's kind of like a theme of this year's class. Like there's a lot of just like unusual combinations of like size versus athleticism. Like I think Alex Sarr, who marked that first, I think he jumped to 42 as well, which is like for someone his height, like that was really big.
Yeah. So Devin Carter, he had but anyway, I know that he set the 3/4 sprint record. And he also had really good lane agility drills. I think for me, he's a guy who I've slowly warmed up more and more on as the season's gone on, and seeing that he's had good measurables has added to that. But one guy who I'm also high on, based off of the scrimmage I watched, was Justin Edwards. I know the first day he had a good outing, second day not as much. But from what I saw in the first outing, I feel like that was more of the type of player that he's going to be at the next level. He was supposed to be one of the top picks in this draft coming into the season, and obviously things didn't work out that way. But I still think he can be kind of like a Peyton Watson. I know a lot of people have said that, but I think one thing about him is that he has more of a skill set than Peyton Watson did, for sure. I think defensively, though, that's going to end up determining what he does at the next level, because with the size he has, he obviously has the tools, but we're seeing now that being able to hold your end of the bargain on the defensive side really does play a big portion of the type of minutes that you're getting, especially if you want to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's someone that I was like, as I was a Kentucky fan this last season, and like watching him play, I was like frustrated with him at the beginning of the season. Like he's somebody I watched in high school. I was like, this guy is going to be great. Like, he looks like a taller Malik Monk a little bit. Like, he's just like, he has a real ability to score and defend. Like, he looked like an impact player on both ends. And at Kentucky, it just wasn't there for like the first half of the season. But eventually he did get it going. And if he's able to carry over what he did in the second half of the season with Kentucky over to the NBA, I think he'll be a really valuable piece. Like, even in high school, I remember he had a game at the Hoop Hall Classic against Ian Jackson. And like, I was excited to see because I was a Kentucky fan. I was like, they're recruiting both guys. Like, I just want to see how it goes. And he made his night hell. Like, it was just every step he took, he was right there. Like, he was, and not only just shutting him down off ball as like one of the primary defenders on him, like off ball as well. Like, he was always in the right spot on help. Like, he got several steals that on like post entries, like wraparound steals and help side steals. Like, he seemed like someone who had really good instincts, and some of those kind of popped up again in the combine the other day. So I'm like, he's one of those players that like it seems like a good team always just finds a way to get. Like, he's someone, like you said, like a Peyton Watson. Like, if a Denver or someone gets somebody like him that can not only like play defense at that level, but show like real shooting like flashes at times. Like, there was a game I want to say at Kentucky where he missed like no shots. Like, he literally did not miss a shot. So, like, I think he's one of the players with, like, a really high ceiling that you can find late in the draft that I could definitely see a team, like, getting towards the end of the first round. They don't like a lot of guys that are projecting that range. I think he's definitely someone that I could see a GM taking a risk on.
Someone I want to pick your guys' brain about is Isaiah Collier, because he's one of the guards in this class that came into this year potentially one of the top picks overall. Definitely was probably the highest projected guard, I would say, before seeing how he did at USC. But he measured in without shoes at 6'2.5". His wingspan, though, 6'4" and 3/4, so just under 6'5". Does that give you guys any concerns about his ability to defend at the next level? Because I know he's like built pretty solid, but in terms of arm length and wingspan, like we saw when Bronny James measured in, he was around, I think, 6'1" without shoes, but he had like a 6'7" wingspan. So that's kind of where his projections defensively, especially on the perimeter, are kind of boosting him a little bit, even though he's a little bit short for the position. But Isaiah Collier has kind of more of just that average, almost 1-to-1 for height and wingspan. So does that give you guys any concerns about his draft stock?
Personally, I say no. I just think that being like a 1-to-1 guy, like it's a thing that NBA players, like NBA GMs, like and scouts talk about a lot. But you've seen guys like be successful players with it. Like, do I think he'll be like a defensive menace, like a Drew Holiday or someone in the league? I don't believe so. But I think what he brings on offense, I think it's good enough for what he works. And like he's 6'2" without shoes, but with shoes on, he's like 6'4", 6'3" and a half. Like, and he's, like you said, he's like actually built. So he's not someone like that you can just kind of like bully and push around on that end. So like really it's about an effort and positioning standpoint. Like there's things he can do to kind of mask that. I think like there's guys like Desmond Bane who fell in his draft class because his arms just aren't long at all. And like I think there's been like a good correlation with some of those guys actually being really good players.
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Cameron said, I'm not really concerned. I mean, I think for him, a lot of what he brings is just on the other side of the ball. Now, obviously, you would like to see him have a little bit better measurables, but I think that's just kind of a thing with all of the guards, really. Like, that's just the way this draft is. There's a lot of guards, but a lot of them are undersized. And even so, I still think he's probably one of the better guards in this class. I think being at USC probably wasn't the best situation, seeing as how that season they underperformed dramatically, and I think that just in turn kind of hurt everybody's stock. But I still am pretty high on him at the next level just because of the skill set and the physical tools that he has now.
Yeah, he's definitely someone who had like a really good second half of the season to me. Like he played, especially when he came back off injury, like he was one of the better guards in the country. And I think that like the wingspan thing, like it's only a thing for certain players. Like if you can't, like if you expect someone to be like a super athletic defender, like someone be like your point of attack defender, or someone who like needs to be able to shoot over people, like then it's a thing. But I think for like certain positions, it's like it'll be fine. Like JJ Redick is someone who had a long NBA career, and I want to say he almost had like a negative wingspan. So I think often guys with shorter wingspan end up being better shooters. So
they are on 2K. That's how it works. I was just about to say that.
Like not obviously, but like they're like JJ Redick, like guys like I can't really think of too many like great small guard shooters that have like a super long wingspan. Like Curry's isn't crazy long. Like
Durant's probably one of the only ones.
Yeah, and he's 7 foot. So it's like another one of the players that stood out to me at least was Nikola Topic. I don't know how to say his name, so if I butcher your name, sorry. If you ever see this, I apologize. But he's someone that's been like kind of like debated upon prospect. Like some people feel that he's good, and some people feel like he has like it's more of his system thing. But I think at the combine he kind of showed that he can. He's a little bit more than the system they run over there in Mega overseas. Like he can pass it, shoot it, 6'8", has really good feel for it. Like he seemed to slide to the right spot. Like he's someone who put up decent numbers and like looked like his skill set was projectable on the NBA level.